Longer time viewers of the channel may recognize this guy, Pheristosaurus torvus, the Grim Reaper lizard, more betterly known as Cronus. This was a hybrid I made to prove a point that predators will always outcompete herbivores. No matter what herbivore you have, there will always be a predator that could overcome it. Cronus was designed to be that carnivore, that predator to overcome any kind of prey. But it seems like he has been massively fallen behind compared to my other major hybrids, Harvey, Bruce, and more recently Mina. And that's because Cronus does have a few flaws with him, which I have now managed to remove. That's the beauty of the hybrid war. We can learn from our mistakes and then come back stronger. And now the new improvements I've made to Cronus should make him almost unstoppable. Now, I won't be recapping anything because I do have a full video on Cronus, but I'm going to go through his new genome, and a lot of it has remained more or less the same. Giganotosaurus provides the base, providing strong body and strong jaws with advanced serrated teeth, as well as a large cranium and enlarged chin to help support the strength of its own bites. This was chosen over something like the Rex because of its arms, since Giganotosaurus was a relative of the Carcharodontosaurs, which meant they had longer arms, which they likely used more, so it would work better in congruity. Acrocanthosaurus provides its enlarged spine, giving it much more muscles, giving it a more muscular body and strong jaws. Supersaurus was added to increase the creature's size, as well as giving it air sacs to support its own weight and a longer whip-like tail to protect its back. But now the Supersaurus is contributing a bit more to the genome in incorporating its pelvis, which will allow Cronus to rear up better. Now for one of the main problems relating around Cronus, his arms, which have gotten a slight overhaul, starting with the Lestodon, which helps to provide better bone attachments for both the arms and the legs, as well as a sturdy heel bone and the special bony nodules underneath the skin to help absorb more impacts, as well as giving Cronus those signature 5-fingered hands. Now for the first new contributor in Cronus' genome, as the the eastern lowland gorilla has been swapped out for the Arctodus, because one of the problems relating around Cronus was that his knuckle walking would mean his own claws would dig into his palm, and also the fact that the knuckle walking might not be enough to support his weight. So, deciding to sort of change his method of locomotion, even though I never specified that he would be knuckle walking, it's just the pose that I drew him in. So, the front limbs are going to be enhanced further with the Arctodus, as well as providing general locomotion abilities. This thing will walk similar to a bear. As well as that, it also provides those large mammalian canines to increase Cronus' bite. There's also another feature for it which will help in it rearing up more, since bears have special hip anatomy, which will allow Cronus to better rear up, combining that with the Supersaurus pelvis. Since Cronus is a facultative biped, he will spend most of his time on all fours, but he can rear up onto 2 legs, which he can do a lot better now than the old version. The claws on Cronus were made up from Maipe macrophorax, having probably some of the largest claws compared to any carnivore, in relative to its body size anyway. This also provides special finger dexterity, which means Cronus, despite having a slightly different hand anatomy now, thanks to no longer having the gorilla in the genome, it should still be sufficient at grabbing things, as well as being able to probably not use tools, but it should still be able to grab opponents and toss them around. As well as that, Maipe brings in a lot of strong muscles, as well as uniquely hollower bones than compared to other dinosaurs, to make Cronus surprisingly lightweight and maneuverable for his size. Now, in terms of defense, one of the big ones is returning, being the Brazilian porcupine. This species specifically because of its unique tail, because the muscles in its tail make up around half of the entire tail. So now the tail isn't not only incredibly long and whip-like, it's also extremely muscular and flexible, pretty much being prehensile and being able to act as a fifth limb, being able to grab other creatures and toss them around, or strangle them to death. And plus the quills will also prevent any creature from climbing onto Cronus's back. But Brazilian porcupine is not the main form of armor. Now, originally I used Megalania for its armor, but I've swapped out Megalania for Komodo dragon for a couple of reasons. One, while its armor might not be as strong as Megalania, it does provide a few more benefits. Granted, Megalania might have also had these benefits, but since it went extinct, we don't really know if it did. Komodo dragons have iron-coated teeth, which was one of the big features that Cronus had, except he used the combination of short-tailed shrew and vampire bat, and I decided to remove both. The Komodo dragon provides sufficient iron-coated teeth, as well as sufficient venom in its saliva, which means it won't affect with the creature's bite. And not only does it also complement the other creatures in the genome with another good set of claws, but also has something called iron enrichment. Now, I'm not completely sure on what this means. Goji Center didn't explain it too well in the Hank 2.0 video. But basically, reptile keratin is stronger than mammalian keratin, which will help to further strengthen the body as well as the claws. I don't necessarily know if that means it coats them in iron as well, but if it does, then consider that a bonus. Finally, we have the skunk, which is meant to act as the failsafe, providing its unique anal glands and spray, which means any creature that manages to get past everything else will still have to deal with a very bad smell. And plus this skunk also provides venom resistance. Granted, probably not to the same level as something like, say, an opossum, but it hopefully will be enough protection to prevent Cronus from getting clapped by the first venomous bite he receives. The other main problem surrounding Cronus, aside from his claws and arm anatomy, was his stats. And that was honestly my bad, because I kinda did overscale him a little bit. But his stats have now been completely overhauled. Now being 18 feet tall as a quadruped, 26 feet tall when rearing up as a biped, 70 feet in length, which is thanks to its long tail, and the original Cronus was lighter at 15 tons, but while this species is smaller than the original, I still decided to increase his weight to 17.5 tons, which was going to be Cronus's original weight, before the whole hollow bone thing from the Maip came into play. And I feel like this makes a much more efficient and deadly version of Cronus, and I actually have a unique little backstory for him. Now, some of you might remember that the original version of Cronus ended up escaping containment and wreaking havoc throughout the United States. This was kind of hoping that a certain someone would respond, because after learning where Parasagenic Tech's location was in New Mexico, Cronus was maybe or maybe not sent there to destroy it. You will never know. A good scientist never reveals his secrets. But yeah, basically now we've been left in clearing up our own mess because no one else would. And this is where the new and improved version of Cronus come in, with the help of a very unlikely ally. Our other successful large hybrid, Mina, actually has a fair bit part to play in this new Cronus's backstory, because elephants are actually quite compassionate, at least to babies, but the females are anyway. Males, not so much. With Mina being a female, well, she actually ended up caring for a much younger baby version of Cronus. This was something similar to the Indom 2.0 and Hank 2.0 situation. Two creatures that were being raised together in captivity, both being well fed so they wouldn't turn on each other, and encouraged to cooperate. Once both creatures reached maturity, they were sent out to dispatch of the rogue Cronus. While being a much larger and stronger combatant than both of them, by working together, they were able to overcome him and kill the rogue Cronus, with surprisingly few difficulties, only sustaining minor injuries. Well, to Cronus anyway. Mina got out surprisingly unscathed. Both of these hybrids work to help cover each other's weak spots, and this quite possibly creates one of the most fearsome tag teams ever seen in the hybrid war. And it could be very possible that these two could definitely do a lot of crazy things together. I don't really know how else to word it, but yeah, because Cronus, in my mind, was going to be my most successful hybrid I'd ever made, but then again, trying to top things like Harvey and Bruce would have been difficult. But now I have hybrids covering all my big main aspects, I think. A carnivore, a herbivore, a flyer, and an aquatic. Those are like the four big main ones. And speaking of the last one, the aquatics, the final spot has been filled for the final 16. The turtle hybrid, named Gamera by the way, because of course it is, has been created and will be filling the final spot. However, there will still be episode 19 of Bruce's Battles, covering the hybrid that couldn't make the cut. So be sure to stay tuned for that.